So let's look at power and dominance in the body. So we exist socially in terms of power relations, and these could be in terms of social class, in terms of nationality, in terms of age, in terms of ethnicity, of course. Gender is one that people talk about a lot. And what you'll tend to see is those power relations are continually expressed in how we stand, how we move, how we take up space, how we gesture. So microaggressions is kind of one kind of expression of this. Can be a bit overstated, but there's much more that are completely missed by people that I think are really interesting. And it's not just how we express the power or lack thereof that we have, but it's also kind of how we create it. So from an embodiment perspective, which is my niche, my specialism, the body creates who we are. So how we stand, move, breathe, etc., pay attention, constructs on a moment by moment basis how we are. And this isn't really as abstract as it sounds. If you stand tall and take up space, you'll feel more confident. So you're actually creating that. Whereas if you go around with your head dipped down, you'll feel depressed. By the end of the day, you can, don't believe me, do these experiments. So some of the ways that power shows up, whether it's across any of these segments, would be about taking up space. So standing with the legs wide, the shoulders wide as opposed to kind of rolled in, standing tall with the head up rather than dip down. It would also be around how one moves, moving with a certain confidence as opposed to kind of hesitantly. Even like breathing fully, the sense of, we can't really think of power without thinking of safety. So there's a certain ease, yeah. This is why, for example, I've studied attraction a lot. Confident people, particularly confident men, are often considered attractive by many people cross-culturally. And one of the big signifiers of that is ease. It's like James Bond is cool. Why is he cool? Because he doesn't think anyone can hurt him, yeah. So we need to think of safety in these terms as well. That ease, that relaxation that comes with enough. If we look at this in terms of, say, financial power, I remember when I was in Norway, which is a relatively wealthy country, one of the more wealthy countries in the world, there's just this sense that people have enough, they're relaxed. So there isn't that dis-ease in the body, that kind of fight or flight response, which comes from being traumatized, which comes from not having enough, not feeling safe. I often give the example of my wife's Ukrainian, and even though she's from a relatively wealthy family, Ukraine as a culture has had a lot of poverty, starvation, this kind of thing. And she'll snatch, and it's just in her body. She won't mean to. It's just, I've seen her take money and she clings to money a little bit more. Whereas in Norway, even in these subtle gestures of how people give you change or how people take money from you, there isn't a kind of an ease and there isn't that kind of tension and snatching in the body, which comes from feeling like, there isn't enough shit. What are we going to do? Can lead to an over-competitiveness. Another way that lack of power can express in the body, other than this kind of agitation of not feeling safe, this fight-flight response, is a kind of slump response, or sometimes it's called fold rather than fight-flight, the long-term effects of powerlessness. So you can think of this almost like learned helplessness, and it's like I just did a video on this in terms of nationalities, but this can apply to, I've seen this in teenage girls quite a lot. They go from I'm 10 years old and I'm a girl, and they hit 12 and they're like, just realizing how much bullshit there is aimed at women, and as they come into womanhood and when they realize what that means in a sexist society, there can be that kind of powerlessness, yeah. There can also be a disempowerment. Can also show the other way as a kind of posturing, which you'll see more in teenage boys, because of course it's not easy being a guy in many ways either. I don't want to just skew this to one gender. So yeah, you'll see it in terms of the slump. Whole countries can have this slump as well. This kind of folded in, smallifying, Paul Linden, one of my teachers calls it, not taking up space. So powerlessness shown in that way. Paul Linden, one of my teachers, works a lot with trauma survivors. So you'll see these patterns of hyperarousal or kind of despair, numbing is another way it can show up, like a kind of blankness. You'll see these trauma patterns in individuals who have been traumatized, but they're sort of just more extreme versions of what you'll see in any group that has less power, yeah? And some of this is just the environment you're in. I grew up in a relatively small kind of house with 4 people, and you're a bit squashed in the whole time, right? Whereas, friends that grew up in fairly big houses with tall ceilings, and there's just sense of you expand into the space you have. So you may know this if you, say, walk into a cathedral or, a large lobby of a big hotel or something, and you kind of immediately you feel that sense of expansiveness. Well, people respond to that. So this is the key thing. This embodiment perpetuates power. So if you're coming from this smaller place and you meet someone who's in this very expansive kind of big vibe going on, which their embodiment is expressing, you'll naturally want to take a low status position in regard to this person. So in this way, power and status perpetuates itself completely unconsciously. If I look at my friends, I've got a good friend who's been to Eton, for example, which is probably like the sort of top fee-paying school in the country. You know, the Prime Minister went to, blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of takes space, and he walks into a room like it's his room and he deserves it. And he's a really nice guy. He's not obnoxious or arrogant in his behavior, but just physically, that's how he's been grown up to be like, the world is yours. And it's very difficult around him to be like, to be dominating of him. It's very difficult to take even an equal status position. So it's really important we recognize this, that our power is continuously recreated, and those kind of dominance relationships are recreated even in small ways, how we're standing, how we're sitting, the man spreading kind of classic one, all the time. So I think this is a fascinating subject, and most people talking around, say, like gender or ethnicity or whatever, they're talking about verbal, the kind of way in which verbally this is done, but actually so much communication is non-verbal, and dominance is immediately non-verbal, like with a dog. You know, on one level we're all dogs, we're like mammalian creatures of hierarchy, whether we have that politics or not, it's in us. On a mammalian kind of animal level, we're pack animals. So before any words are even spoken, power structures are recreated through the body. So I think this is an exciting topic. I think it's one that almost no one ever talks about. And it's really interesting to notice in yourself if you're doing either those kind of low status or high status kind of dominance things. And you can go, well, do I want to keep doing that? Do I want to do that now? If you have enough awareness to spot that.